Episode 6, Chapter 5, We Will Rock You. Chapter 5, We Will Rock You. Deep, deep down under the ground, under grass and soil, under worms and moles, below the rocks and rubble of vanished civilizations, beneath anything and everything in the world above, in the darkest hole in the deepest pit of the entire earth. Something stirred. Something ancient and foul, something that caused the ground around it to creak and groan in agony with every step it took, and loved that agony more than anything in the world. Tapping its fingers against a wall, it sent a tremor that would collapse a building in a far-off city and crush all inside. Kicking a crack in the floor, it created a rockslide in the mountains above that would spell doom for an unlucky gold miner. A quake that dozens fell shrieking into, a rolling boulder that smeared a horse and rider both into a rich red paste. All was done with both an indifferent boredom and a malicious glee simultaneously. This was how the being occupied its time until it felt the significant footsteps on the earth of one it recognized, returning home at last. About time he returned. The being sighed, walking down the length of its home and its prison both, no longer paying attention to the damage done with each impression of its feet upon the ground. Reaching the gate of its prison, it looked out through it to the one lying on its knees, bowing before it even before it arrived, something which amused the being. Although the cloud of darkness remaining around the prostrate vampire irritated him. "Remove your aura. It is not necessary here." Yes. The vampire scrambled to dissipate the cloud, then banged his head against the ground. "Forgive me my impertinence. It was not meant, Master Lich. I shall. I have grown used to your foolishness by this time." Lich, the fiend of earth, sighed through the barrier separating them. "What news do you bring from the others?" "The Dark Elf King is slain," the vampire reported. "Astos is dead. It seems the Light Warriors were too much for him." "Humph. I was afraid such would be the case," Lich growled, cursing the departed Astos for a weakling. "The fact that even we cannot trace the origin of that prophecy suggests that it may have some validity. Have Carrie and Kraken decided to take this seriously, then?" "Not quite yet," the vampire admitted. "They remain unconvinced." "Damnation!" Lich shook his head, then thought for a moment. "What of the remaining dark elves, then? What have they done now, after their king's demise?" The vampire winced. "There seems to have been a schism in their order. Half of them are journeying to the northwest, to present themselves to Tiamat, on the grounds that she was the one who aided Astos. The other half go to Kraken instead, claiming that a different fiend as master will change their fortunes." The undead monster sneered, exposing his fangs. "The fools don't see that the same fate awaits them no matter which of you they serve. The same fate of all life, in the end." "Indeed." Lich was amused again at his own servant's tone. "And yet, you do not seem bothered by the concept." "Master, I am already dead." The vampire grinned. "My continued existence beyond that serves only one purpose. Yours, and to a lesser extent the other fiends. Me, and the rest of my brethren whom Tiamat created, were born only to carry out your will. We have no illusions about that. And thus, if your wish and will are for the extinction of all life, so are mine." "Ha! You truly are an excellent puppet." The fiend of earth's eyes glowed from behind the barrier. "Very good, servant of mine. I die to serve." The vampire joked, then pressed on. "Speaking of servants, although the Dark Elves have decided not to entreat your mastery, others have. The Wizards of Marsh have held themselves apart from us since their founding, but it seems the Light Warriors killed their 4 strongest members as well as Astos. After they escaped, the remaining wizards summoned my attention, and requested to serve me.
or should I say, you, although they didn't know the difference. In order to get revenge on our common enemies.
Lich pondered that.
The wizards of Marsh do have some power. They may indeed be useful. Very well. Tell them that their request is accepted, and order them to come here immediately, to the Earth Cave. There, they shall enter my service and serve my will. And will you offer them the chance to gain your blessing as well?
The vampire inquired, his own eyes now glowing.
I think not.
Lich decided.
Not quite yet. They have, as you said, held themselves apart from us for some time. They must prove themselves to me before they earn that chance. Understood.
The vampire's eyes continued to glow, despite his disappointment.
But there are others. More ogres have come.
This time, Lich laughed, deep and dark and cruel.
Ha 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 ha. Ogres are a different story. They have served me well, and any who are brave enough to entreat my blessing may freely receive it. Show them to me, immediately.
Nodding, the vampire departed and returned shortly, leading 6 of the muscle-bound brutes.
I have told you that I am only Lich's puppet.
The undead bloodsucker was saying to them.
To receive his blessing, you must offer yourselves up to Lich himself.
He gestured to the barrier, the square plate in the ground that was so simple and yet so infuriatingly complex.
Here is Lich. Here is the fiend of earth.
The ogres squinted down at it, uncomprehending.
Plate? Is Lich?
One of them questioned. After a moment, one of his comrades answered.
Lich is under plate.
The other 5 looked impressed at that. It was quite a show of thought for an ogre.
Oh. Okay. Bow to me.
Lich hissed, drawing their attention.
Bow to me, and we shall see if you are deserving of my blessing.
The ogres bowed, touching their heads to the floor, and Lich reached his hands out, pressing them against the plate.
If you swear to serve me, if you wish to hold my power, the tiniest fragment of my power, the power to rip the world asunder from within, then you shall become the darkness of the earth's core, the malice and hatred of all that lurks in the depths beyond the imaging of others. Be both enlightened and accursed beyond all of your kind. Be the rot of the earth, the taint of the ground. Be part of me, and I part of you. And receive of my blessing.
As he spoke, the ogres began to change, their pink skin tinting, turning to green. Their limbs twitched spasmodically, and their faces contorted in pain, as 6 pebbles penetrated the barrier to float over, to embed themselves in their foreheads. 3 of the ogres, weaker than their companions, howled in agony and melted, dissolving into sand, bodies crumbling under the power that had descended upon them. The other 3 endured, the pain on their faces changing to twisted grins as their skin finished coloring with the green hue. Standing, they picked up the wooden clubs they had brought with them, and the power now inside them changed the weapons to stone.
Go now, and join the others who have also received Lich's blessing. Wait for further instructions.
The vampire commanded, and the green ogres obeyed immediately. Once they were gone, the vampire turned to the plate again.
Is there anything else you would ask of me at the moment, Master Lich? No. I am pleased.
The fiend of earth turned away.
You may go feed, puppet. I will call upon you when I need you again.
And Lich returned to the depths of the earth, feet bringing untold pain with every step.
Ahoy, Cornelia!
Luke yelled at the gathering guard from the bow of the Amphitrite as the ship sailed into port.
Don't get excited, it's us.
After a moment, the young fighter's brother stepped out in front.
Luke, you moron!
Leon bellowed back, grinning despite himself.
What the hell are you doing with Bicky the pirate? You want to take that one?
Luke asked Bicky, who had walked up next to him.
I'm paying off me debt to society, or whatever.
Bicky hollered.
These fellas kicked me arse, so I'm their ride now. You go to Provoco looking for a ship that'll take you, and you get pirates. Why am I not surprised?
Leon shook his head.
Well, if you say they'll behave, it's good enough for me. Come on in and tell me what the deal is, okay? If we yell for too much longer we'll all be hoarse for the rest of the day.
After Bicky had dropped anchor, the light warriors walked out onto the harbor.
We'll just stay here, I guess.
Bicky decided.
The taverns are calling us, but I don't wanna risk our newfound law-abidingness.
Leon nodded approvingly.
If you would like, me and some of the boys can come back with some ale after we take these guys to the castle.
He grinned again.
Betcha soldiers can drink more than pirates can. Ho! You're on, laddie.
The pirate captain laughed.
Go get your bomb, fellas. We'll be fine. Bomb.
Leon raised an eyebrow as they began heading towards the castle.
Now what are you up to? Oh, the usual.
Drake shrugged deprecatingly.
Lich made the first move and collapsed the Aldi straight. There's a dwarf who says he can blow it open with some TNT, and we hear there's some in the treasury, so we ran down to my hometown and kicked a bunch of ass to get the mystic key. That's the short version. We can get to the longer one once we meet a certain lady Luke here's pretty anxious to see again.
Luke elbowed him in the ribs, then looked ahead at the castle door.
Wonder where she is?
He smiled as his question was answered, looking curious. Princess Sarah had just walked out into the main hall. As soon as she saw them, she ran forward, beaming.
Luke! You're back!
Running forward, she stopped herself from embracing him and instead simply took his hand.
I thought it would be longer. Well, you know how it goes.
Drake shrugged.
Saving the world's nice, but gotta stay in touch with friends too. Actually, there's something we need here to continue our trip, but it's not like we'd mind coming back here anyways. Luke especially.
Leon rolled his eyes.
Just keep it low-key, you two. We are in public. Of course.
Sarah nodded.
Well then. Come, friends. Let's go find a sitting room, and you can tell me what you've been up to.
Several hours and one tale of pirates, dwarves, wizards, and dark elves later, the light warriors finished their tale. Princess Sarah had enjoyed most of it, laughing at Bicky's antics, growing angry at the moves of Lich and Astos, and turning pale at the mention of Drake's death despite the elf's presence, alive and breathing, right in front of them.
How horrible! What was it like?
The princess asked once the story was finished. Drake shook his head.
I can't remember what happened after the spell hit me. I just couldn't move, and then everything went black, and the next thing I knew I was waking up back in Elfland. I suppose it's probably for the best. We probably really shouldn't know too much about the other side until it's our real time. True.
Sarah conceded.
Well then. Why don't we go take a look at that treasury? I've always been a bit curious about what's in it myself. Sounds good.
Mary smiled as they all began walking.
The prince told us later on about all the locations of the treasure caches that were locked up with the mystic key. This one in Corn area is the most important, of course, but there are others too. In the castle of Elf as well as Astos place. I found this in there.
She proudly hefted her new hammer, which was made out of solid silver. Sarah winced, then grinned wickedly.
I'll bet the bad guys really love that. Oh, yeah. One dumb ogre got in our way after she picked that up, and I think she broke a record for distance on flying heads.
Drake chuckled.
That the treasury? That's it, all right.
Luke stepped up to the ordinary-looking wooden door and pushed the mystic key into the lock on it. The entire door began glowing, and then with a startling noise it exploded, filling the inside of the treasury with wooden splinters. Fortunately, none of it flew at the heroes or the princess, who simply stared at the doorknob as it dropped to the floor and rolled down the hall, trailing smoke. Luke scratched the back of his head.
Oops. Forgot to mention that happens. Sorry about that. Magical backlash when the spell's broken.
Vlad explained.
Annoying, but no way around it on something this old. Well, I suppose we can get a new door put in.
Sarah conceded, then leaned against the wall, laughing helplessly.
Well, I guess saving the world just involves lots of explosions, no helping it.
Drake shrugged.
Actually, that makes a certain amount of sense now that I think about it. You're twisted, you know that.
Luke remarked as he looked inside the treasury.
Let's see here. Some armor and a shield, nice enough, I suppose, but nothing special. Same with this saber. Hey, Vlad, check this out.
He held up a large silver dagger.
Now you've got one too. Seems that way.
Vlad nodded, actually sounding pleased for once.
This should come in handy. A lucky find, even if it's not what we need most. Yeah, point. What is this supposed to be?
Luke grunted as he hefted a solid iron staff, 6 feet long.
A super curtain rod? You could probably break heads with it, but that's about it. Unless it's enchanted? I've heard mages can store spells in magic staffs. They can.
Mary admitted.
But that thing doesn't have any. Maybe it's a rejected attempt. What, tossed in here because they figured nobody would find it. Figures.
Luke disgustedly chucked the iron staff into a corner, then brightened up.
Hey, is this it?
He was referring to a bundle of smaller red cylinders, each with a length of black wire protruding from one end. Drake picked the bundle up and examined it.
What do you think, guys? I'd say so.
Mary nodded.
Not much else in here it could be, unless you want to try detonating that staff. Har. Not bad. I'm rubbing off on you.
The elf snickered.
All right then, we'll say this is the TNT. We've got it, then. Now for a little rest, At least one night here before we head back to the Temple of Fiends.
Sarah jumped.
The Temple of Fiends? Why? According to the prince, there's some stuff there too.
Luke explained.
Same with the dwarf cave where we need to go. And with the marsh cave, but we're not heading back in there. Not worth it.
The princess made a face.
Understandable. Well then, I suppose we had better go see father now. He'll have been told about your arrival by now, and he'll probably be wondering what that explosion was, too. Most people would.
Mary agreed.
Unless they grew up with me and my brother, anyways. I thought we agreed to never speak of the pufferfish incident again.
Vlad growled, pulling his hat even further down over his face.
Bah and humbug. Oh ho, this sounds good.
Drake grinned wickedly at the black mage.
Don't get too bent out of shape, man. Tell you what, later tonight I'll tell you about the time I jumped out of a noble's window right onto a guardsman's head, If it's to hear of your humiliation, I suppose I can endure it.
Vlad gave in.
Later, though. For now, let's go see the king before he sends the guard to reenact the response to that move of yours.
They spent the night in Cornaria as promised, staying up late talking and laughing with the princess. The next day they left again, but not on their ship. The area around the temple was surrounded by sheer cliffs, so they were forced to hike again. Fortunately, the local wildlife were still suitably cowed by them, and so they returned to the temple with little trouble. It was as dark and dilapidated as ever, with the same undead inhabitants. Compared to Astos and the terrors of the marsh cave, though, they were nothing, and the light warriors now dispatched them with ease until the survivors fled into the woods, shrieking in terror.
And to think, just a couple months ago we were scared of these clowns.
Drake snorted.
A couple months ago, we were nothing like we are now.
Vlad reminded him.
And even now we'll still need to get a lot better to stand a chance against the fiends. Which is why we're here in the first place. Yeah.
Drake shrugged.
Let's look, already. Caches in the four corners of the temple, he said.
The first one contained nothing but a jaunty cap, which Drake cheerfully donned. The second, though, held a sword with a strange design. The hilt had an ornamental wolf's head on its sides.
An enchanted blade.
Mary looked it over.
It was made to slay evil beasts. Corrupted animals, like those wolves out there. So it'll be really effective against them or something.
Luke picked it up, then shook his head.
Doesn't feel as good in my hand as this silver one, though. Might as well keep it around, I guess. Looks too heavy for me to use.
Drake shrugged.
Oh well, let's keep ransacking.
The third room simply held a collection of potions, healing, anti-poison, and even one that Mary identified as being able to cure petrification spells. The last room held another sword, this one lighter and covered with runes. Both mages winced as they drew near it.
That one's enchanted too. Against magic, and anything that relies heavily on it.
Vlad identified it.
Whatever you do, don't cut me or Mary with it. Like we'd do that anyways.
Drake snorted, picking the blade up.
This is better than the saber I've got. Although if it bugs you guys that much, I'll keep it in my pack unless we run into more wizards. We'd prefer it.
Mary admitted.
Well, if we're done here. Luke, where are you going? Might as well check out Garland's room while we're here.
Luke answered as he walked towards the center of the temple. The other three followed him after a moment. Garland's room was unchanged, aside from its lack of inhabitants. Something that Luke noticed instantly.
Hey! Wait a second. Where'd he go? Garland.
Drake looked around.
He's dead. He can't just go walking out. Right. Well, he's not here.
Mary shook her head.
Somebody must have taken his body away. Those undead, maybe? What's this?
She looked at the altar in the back of the room where, sitting placidly, was an orb of black crystal. All four light warriors shuddered as they looked it over.
Gives me the creeps. Doesn't it look like our orbs?
On a simultaneous thought, all four pulled theirs out for comparison. The black orb was indeed the exact same size and shape as theirs, but where theirs were dim and foggy from the inside, the fifth orb held nothing but a vast, total blackness. A hole with nothing inside.
Weird.
Drake began to reach out a hand, intending to touch the black orb, when a frenzied squeaking filled the air and several small black bats flew down from the roof and began circling the light warriors' heads.
Whoa! Get off! Hey!
The light warriors stepped back, and instantly the bats stopped, flying over to land in front of the black orb. There were 5 of them, sitting there and staring gravely at them.
Hey! They don't really seem too hostile. Did they actually attack any of us? Doesn't look like it.
Vlad narrowed his eyes.
It seems they don't want us to touch that black orb. Which we should have figured out by ourselves, idiot. That thing is not good. Even if we have no idea what it is. Yeah. Sorry.
Drake shook his head.
We should probably leave it alone for now, since we don't know what the heck it is.
Luke decided.
When we meet the sages, though, let's make sure to ask them about it. I get the feeling it's important. Let's get going, then. Off to the Aldi Straits again. Yo, Nirik.
Bicky unceremoniously kicked the door of the Dwarven chief's private residence open, and all 4 light warriors winced.
Wakey wakey. Time to blow things up.
An empty mug came flying out of another room to strike Bicky in the face.
What the hell are ya doing here?
Nirik bellowed, not emerging.
We got your TNT, that's what.
Bicky hollered back.
You want to blow that straight up or what?
There was a short silence from the room before Nirik replied again.
Damn it, alright. Gimme a moment.
Several minutes later, the Dwarven chief stumped out, rubbing his eyes.
Idiot. Couldn't ya have waited a few hours at least? Sorry about that.
Luke apologized.
Bicky, man. Come on. You're not this bad. You don't know this guy.
Mr. Smite grunted.
Nirik'll sleep until noon if you let him. We want to get through that straight today, this is how to do it. Like you're an early bird.
Nirik muttered.
Alright, where's the TNT?
Luke produced it, and the dwarf snatched it up eagerly.
This is it alright. Haha, yeah did it, lads. I'll have that damn thing down in no time, and with luck it'll give that asshole Lich a headache, too. Amen to that.
Drake grinned viciously.
Anything we can do to help? Restrain Bicky.
Nirik answered promptly.
Aside from that, just stay out of the way. We'll take care of this.
He snapped his fingers.
Here's something. Yahve got the mystic key now, right? Smite, take M down to the locked room and let M go through it. Consider it our way of paying Yah for this.
He hefted the dynamite and grinned even wider.
Right. I'll get the lads together, then, and in a couple hours, it's boom time. Ha ha ha.
He walked out and began hollering at some other dwarves immediately, while Bicky turned to look at Mr. Smite.
You can remember where the locked treasury here is? Yes, I can remember things like that.
The former first mate confirmed.
It's why you keep me around. Oh, right. Anyone else feeling a little out of their depth here?
Drake muttered as the 2 pirates led the way towards another area of the dwarf cave.
Hey, they know the turf.
Luke shrugged.
Let M handle it. They are our buddies. Right, here it is.
Mr. Smite indicated a locked door.
Don't worry about the explosion, they're used to M around here. Right.
Opening the door, Luke stepped over its remnants and began rooting around in the pile of dusty gear.
Okay, this time we have some helmets, a little cash.
He pocketed that.
Another silver dagger might as hang on to it in case yours breaks or something, Vlad. Some silver armor too. And what's this? Looks like another enchanted sword.
It was short and green, with a dragon carved around the hilt.
Let me guess. Kills dragons. Yup.
Mary confirmed.
Still not my style of blade. Oh well.
Sighing, Luke handed it to Drake, who grinned.
I'll use this, then, since it doesn't seem to bug you guys. There goes my theory of Vlad being a dragon under that hat. Oh well, 1 down, about 20 to go. If you even mention ogres, imps, sahaghin, or anything else related to them, I'm setting you on fire.
Vlad snorted.
Well, looks like we're done here. Now what? Now we go out and wait for the show.
Bicky crowed.
We won't wanna miss it, believe me. Beer first.
Mr. Smite suggested.
We're running low. Arg, of course.
The former captain slapped his forehead.
Right, we get a few drinks for the road, then head back.
The few drinks turned out to be 3 massive barrels that took all of them to carry back to the ship. Once that had been done, Bicky took the Amphitrite out about a mile away from the harbor, and they waited for about an hour, lounging on the deck and looking out at the blockade.
So, when's it gonna happen?
Drake wondered eventually. As soon as he said it, the sky was light up with a blinding light as a massive pillar of fire erupted from the blockade, tearing through the clouds with a noise like the world itself had been cracked in half.
Get down!
Bicky yelled, diving to the deck, and all the pirates followed suit. The light warriors did so as well only moments before a hail of heated gravel began battering them. Fortunately, it seemed it was not hot enough to set fire to the ship. After some time, the gravel dissipated, and the light warriors looked back up. The blockade was completely gone, and the Aldi Strait beckoned.
Well.
Drake dusted himself off.
That was interesting. Truly.
Vlad agreed.
Let's never, ever do it again. We agree on something again.
The elf noted.
How about that? Just be glad the big rocks were launched further out.
Bicky stood as well.
So. Off we go again, then. Still want to head to Crescent Lake?
Mary and Luke glanced at each other, then at Drake.
Well. Melman's closer, right?
The fighter asked.
Yeah. It's right on the other side of the straits.
Bicky nodded.
You figurin' on goin' there first? We might as well.
Mary followed up.
I've heard that's where Lich, the Fiend of Earth, is. Since we'll be near there anyways, we could do some recon on what he's up to. It's worth trying, anyways. Well, you all know I won't vote against heading towards Lich.
Drake smiled grimly, then looked at Vlad, who sighed and turned away, slumping against a rail.
Whatever. Melmond it is, then.
Bicky bounded over to the wheel.
Away we go, har har har.
To the east of Elfland was the land of Melmond, extending southwest from the extensive mountain ranges that surrounded the Aldi Strait. Those same mountains covered much of Melmond, but the lower lands were rolling plains, healthy and bountiful. The people of Melmond were mostly humans, docile and industrious farmers, although the dwarves of the mountains were friendly as well and occasionally even came down to join the human communities. Cultivating the soil and the flourishing bounties of nature, Melmond had been a prosperous country, always willing to aid its neighbors in times of famine or strife. Until the coming of the Fiend of Earth.
It's worse than I had imagined.
Luke growled as the Amphitrite approached Melmond City.
So this is what the presence of a fiend does to a land. And this is the capital.
If it hadn't been for the presence of people wandering around listlessly, the city would have appeared to be an abandoned wreckage. There was not a single straight street in the town, if one could call the unpaved, crooked dirt paths streets at all. The houses themselves were no better. Not only were they dangerously slanted in every direction imaginable, they were nearly falling apart. Every one of them had a pile of fallen shingles and bricks to one side, which the owners had made no attempt to clear. The people themselves looked normal enough at first glance, but closer examination revealed utter despair in their eyes.
If the capital's this bad, what's it like out in the countryside?
Drake wondered.
How long has this been going on? Since Lich arose, of course.
Vlad's eyes were burning, and he spoke with an unusual heat.
What you're seeing is the result of 200 years of exposure to the most vile abomination imaginable. The fiends are the antithesis of creation. Everything they do brings ruin. It's horrible.
Mary was staring at the massive graveyard, which was even now being expanded further.
These people don't have any hope left. They're just waiting for the day that they're the ones chosen by Lich to die. They've given up on anything else in their lives. 'Tis a sorry state.
Vicky had relinquished the wheel, and was now standing at the rail with the light warriors, looking at Melmond with a weary cynicism.
It was like this the first time I came to this part o' the world, and it ain't changed since. Crescent Lake ain't so bad, with Carrie sleepin' all the time, but Onrak up near Kraken is like this. And there ain't even this much left of Lefane. Tiamat blew that all away.
He gave the light warriors a direct look.
You was all born a fair distance away from the fiends. This'd be your first time seein' what they do up close, first hand. Change your minds about your job any. Just the opposite.
Drake scowled.
Looking at all those faces. Every one of those people out there has lost somebody they love in the worst way possible. And I'm going to take the cost of every single one of those lives out of Lich's hide. With a dull, rusty knife.
The other light warriors nodded in agreement, and Vicky grinned ferociously.
Good, good. With thinkin' like that, and the kinda stuff you fellas can dish out, you just might stand a chance. With that in mind, though, seems to me we got a decision to make here. Are you just stopping here for the moment, see what Big L's up to, or are you gonna throw down with him here and now? 'Cause if it's just the former, might not wanna go around announcing who and what you are just yet.
He looked back to the people again.
See, folks like that. It may seem like giving 'em any little bit of hope would be a good thing. But if you tell 'em you're the guys who'll kill Lich, then just sail off to Crescent Lake and leave him here. Es gonna hit 'em even harder. Make 'em even more down. So maybe you should just keep a lid on your identities for a bit, eh? I doubt they'll care much. Didn't even object to me sailin' in here and parkin' right in front, and I know Melmond knows who I am. You're one of a kind, Vicky.
Drake admitted with a slight smile.
He's got a point, fellas. Low-key might be the way to go until we sound out what's going on here. We could try picking a fight with Lich before we meet up with the sages, but as much as I want the bastard's head, it might not be a good idea. Let's scout out the deal here more before we make any decisions. Subtle's not usually my thing, but I guess I can manage it if you guys do most of the talking.
Luke conceded.
I assume we'll want to stay clear of the castle, then? Should we just check in at the inn and then hit the taverns? We might as well shop around while we're here, too.
Mary suggested.
You two can look up the smiths around here, and we'll check out the local magicians for some updating.
She smiled a little too.
It was nice of your girlfriend to fund us some more, Luke. I'm starting to suspect she likes you. I think your sister's been hanging around Drake too much.
Luke mentioned to Vlad.
His tendency to make clever comments is rubbing off. It might be contagious.
The black mage agreed.
I just hope that's the only thing he has that is. Perhaps we should take him by the doctors here too to have him checked out. And that's my cue to jump ship.
Drake hurdled the rail and landed neatly on the shabby dock.
Mecha at the nicest inn around in a couple hours, guys.
The other light warriors left the ship more sedately, and spread out into Melmond. Several hours later, and some spells and equipment richer, and several thousand gold pieces poorer, the light warriors reconvened at an inn that was only slightly inclined. Before going down into the tavern, they met in their rooms to discuss what they had learned already.
Actually, we might not even need to go there. It looked like the sort of place where everybody wants to be alone with their problems, and the guys me and Luke visited were talkative enough anyways.
Drake was toying with the dragon sword he had picked up from the dwarf cave as he talked. Apparently, he hadn't found anything to top it.
Were your magicians friendly enough to give you info too? Oh, yes.
Mary nodded grimly.
They told us all about how Lich comes out personally and kills somebody himself once a week. Drains them of blood entirely. His method of choosing who seems random, but even here in the capital, the one he picks can never escape. Even the guard have given up trying to stop him. Just leads to even more deaths. We've got a visual description of him, though.
Luke noted.
Not as impressive as I expected, really. Just a pale guy in a blue cloak with big teeth. It's not looks that count,
Vlad pointed out.
It's his power. We still don't know how strong that really is. And we likely won't until we test him ourselves. The sages theorized that a great deal of the fiend's power is passive. They cause destruction and chaos by their very existence, and you can't aim that kind of thing. How much power can Lich directly call down on our heads when we meet him face to face? That's what's going to determine our fight with him. What is that screaming?
The black mage irritably glanced out the window.
Looks like something's wrong. They're screaming Lich over and over again.
The sharp-eared elf detected, standing up.
Sounds like he's coming to the capital for his snack tonight. Looks like it's time for us to make a decision, fellas. Now? Sheesh.
Luke groaned.
I'll admit that if we do want to fight him, this is the best way to do it. Here out in the open, instead of in the core of his turf. But are we ready? I think we'll have to be.
Mary hefted her silver hammer, reflecting the moonlight from the window.
He's here to kill somebody. We can't just stand here and let him do that, can we? Do you always have to put it like that?
Vlad glared at his sister.
When you say it that way, you cut off all choice in the matter. We can't very well say that we'll let his victim die just because we don't want to risk our own hides. I'm guessing that's why she did it that way.
Drake looked out the window.
Looks like he's coming in through the south gate. Everybody's running. Shall we get down there and start this off? If he does prove to be too much, humiliating as it may be, Vicky's still anchored nearby to provide us an escape route. But let's hope it won't come to that, Right.
Luke shoved the door open and dashed down the stairs with the other three in tow.
Let's see how we stack up against the Fiend of Earth.
Bursting through the front door, they shoved past the fleeing citizens and stood squarely in Lich's path. The blue-cloaked monster stopped and looked them over, bloody red pupils set in black flickering from one to another.
And who would you be? Some band of ruffians seizing the opportunity to try and play the heroes.
He laughed, exposing massive fangs.
Fools! I am no ordinary monster. I am Lich, Fiend of Earth, and you're delaying my meal. I'll give you one chance to change your minds and step aside. Be smart and do so, and only one death will come from my hands tonight. Otherwise, Nice to meet you, Lich.
Luke greeted him back, reaching into his pack.
As a matter of fact, we have business with you. It's been a while in coming, but now it looks like we can finally deal.
Pulling out his orb, he raised it.
I believe this is yours. We're here to return it. Or if not this one of those belonging to my buddies here. The sentiment still stands, though.
Seeing the orb, Lich recoiled, hissing.
The orb of air. You're them. The light warriors. Amazing deduction there, old boy.
Drake drawled, then glared, dropping any semblance of humor.
Then you should know what we're here for, too. You were right, though. There will be only one death tonight. And it just happens to be yours.
The vampire drew back, then cackled and raised his hands.
You poor idiots. Coming against me this early in your careers? I've been watching you, and I know just how undertrained you are. You've made a fatal error, trying yourself against the fiend of earth without your true power. Your journey, your lives, and your pathetic prophecy all end, here and now. Console yourselves with the knowledge that you've bought the unlucky sap I was going to feast on another week of life. I'll drain you all instead, starting with the girl.
In less than a second, he was upon Mary, crossing the feet between them instantly and lunging for her throat. Before he could strike, though, an intense white light gathered around her hands, and Lich fell back, screaming and covering his face. The sphere of light she held flew out and smashed into him before detonating, sending him flying.
Holy magic! It banishes the undead, which it seems your form has some relation to.
Mary noted.
Brother, would you care to follow up? Only too glad to.
Vlad raised his hands, and twin fire blasts poured from them to ignite the enemy.
The undead also burn quite well, abomination. As you're finding out.
The vampire frantically beat at the flames covering his cloak, then brought his hands up just in time to catch Luke's sword.
Ah.
Lich grinned again.
Close, but no yo.
His hands smoking, he dropped the sword and jumped back.
Silver? Damn you all! Whoa!
Drake's sword took a chunk out of his shoulder as he jumped away, raising his hands. There was a flash of bright light, several of them, actually, in random colors, and all four light warriors reeled, clutching their eyes.
Ha! Got you! It seems I've made a tactical error. I'll just have to go hungry for now. If you really want to kill me, come to the Earth Cave, and we'll see how you do on my turf. I'll be waiting.
When their vision cleared, the vampire was gone.
Damn! He got away.
Drake kicked the ground angrily.
At least we didn't lose.
Vlad reminded him.
On the contrary, we seemed to have the upper hand. I'm loath to admit it, but we might be able to actually count on victory here. If that's all he can do to us directly, we should be able to overcome him, even on his own grounds.
He blinked, realizing for the first time that all of the citizens were staring at them.
Oh, hell! We've drawn a crowd. So much for keeping low-key here.
One old man approached them, albeit a bit hesitantly.
Are you the Light Warriors?
He asked.
Sarda told us you would be coming. Yeah, we're the Light Warriors.
Luke gave in, sheathing his sword.
Sarda? Name sounds familiar. He the sage from here? Yes. He returned to us recently, and told us to expect the coming of the Light Warriors soon.
The old man explained. All four of them raised eyebrows at that bit of news.
Returning home from Crescent Lake? That's unusual.
Mary murmured.
As far as I know, the sages haven't left there once since they convened a decade ago. Where is Sardan now? He went south. Through the Titan's tunnel.
The elder reported a bit gloomily.
I don't know how he made it past the Titan. That one bars the path of all others. But before he went, he said that when you came here, it would be to rid us of our scourge. Is this true? Pretty much, it looks like.
Drake smiled at them all.
We might want to see if we can find a way to go see this Sarda first, but after that it looks like we're headed to the Earth Cave. Why don't we go on back to the tavern and we'll tell you all about it.
As the Light Warriors had feared, the condition of the land of Melmond deteriorated much, much further once they had left the city behind and headed south. The once fertile lands had been rotted by Lich's taint, becoming festering swamps filled with monsters and undead. To the disgust of Drake in particular, many of them resembled the evolutionary defects that had inhabited the marsh cave. With the magical cabins providing safety at night, the Light Warriors slogged on, until they finally emerged from the wastes a week's travel south of Melmond.
Right, according to the directions of the old man, that stretch of mountains to the west should hold the entrance to the Titan's tunnel.
Luke recalled.
On the other hand, if we keep heading south across that narrow strip of land, we'll reach the Earth Cave. Let's try for the Titan first. I'd still like to consult at least one sage if we can before taking Lich on in his own turf. Probably for the best.
Drake agreed as they continued onward.
So, I've been wondering. Just what the heck is a Titan anyways? According to the legends, when the elements created the world, they made the Titans first in order to help them with the actual building process. Do the heavy lifting, so to speak.
Mary recited.
They were supposed to have all left when the work was done, but it looks like one stuck around. Just in case, I guess. They don't really have much in the way of thought processes.
Vlad added.
If the Melmondians are right and he doesn't like letting people through, we're likely to be out of luck. Still, gotta try.
Luke shrugged as they entered the cavern in the base of the mountains before them. The Titan's tunnel was oddly lit by a dim blue glow that seemed to emanate from the very rocks around them. After only a few feet, it narrowed sharply so that they could barely fit through, and beyond that, a massive, vaguely man-like figure blocked the way. His rough, jagged hide looked to be made of the same blue rock as his tunnel, and he wore a brown, sleeveless kirtle. Looking down at them from a pair of gaps in his head that were probably eyes, he spoke.
None pass this way. We kind of need to, really bad, big guy.
Drake tried his most winning smile.
We have to talk with Sarda. I think he's expecting us. Sarda.
The Titan thought about that for a moment.
Sarda said. Some come. Bring me Ruby.
Something shone in his eyes.
You have? Ruby. No.
Drake blinked, nonplussed. He looked at the other Light Warriors, who shook their heads.
Sorry, big guy. We're not really in the jewelry business right now. Then? No pass.
The Titan stated firmly.
Bring Ruby. Then me let you through. Well, great.
Luke muttered as they departed.
Where the heck are we going to get a ruby? Perhaps there'll be one in the Earth Cave.
Mary attempted to placate him.
Maybe. I suppose we could always shake Lich until one falls out.
Drake suggested.
Oh well, it was worth a shot. To the Fiend of Earth, then.
Half a week more of travel brought them to a narrow valley lying between two mountain ranges. It was even more bleak than the swamp, grey, jagged stone completely devoid of life. No grass, no tree, no plant of any sort grew on the barren rocks, and the only animals were the occasional monster. After walking through the dead valley for a day, they finally found it, a massive opening in the wall to their left, large enough to fit Bicky's entire ship through. A faint, brownish glow was barely visible through the darkness, and all 4 light warriors could feel a dark, powerful evil emanating from it.
The Earth Cave. This is it, guys,
Luke declared bleakly.
Last chance to turn back. None of our going to do that.
Mary shook her head, drawing her robes further around her.
We've come too far for that. It's time to start achieving our destiny. My sister is right. If this is the chosen time, then so be it.
Vlad glared fiercely out from the darkness under his hat.
We've faced horrors enough already. Let's see what this cave's got. Whatever it is, we'll beat it down.
Drake agreed, stabbing behind him and killing the hyena that had been pouncing without even looking.
It's only been a few months, but we're worlds beyond where we started. Let's do this. If we're all agreed, then it's time to go.
Luke led the way, slashing at any monsters in their path, as they walked down the sloping tunnel into the Earth's depths. Soon, the brown glow became just as apparent as the blue aura in the Titan's tunnel, removing the need for a torch. This glow, though, had a sickly tinge that none of the light warriors looked at long. Instead, they kept their attention on the enemies. Ogres, both normal and green, were the first wave of bouncers, and were quickly dealt with. Here, the path split, leading 4 ways.
Hey! I think I can see signs above the tunnels.
Drake muttered.
That one ahead of us says Hall of Snakes.
He shuddered.
Don't think we'll want that. Or this one to our right, Hall of Slimes. Like the ones in the marsh cave.
Vlad recalled.
My magic's strong, but I don't think I'd want to blast through an entire hall of them. No.
Drake squinted at the 3rd.
Hall of Geists. Ghouls. Can't see it clearly.
He broke off as Mary clapped a hand over his mouth and pulled him down, Luke and Vlad diving to the floor as well behind a few large rocks. In the hall being discussed, a humongous humanoid head appeared, dwarfing even the ogres. 20 feet tall with jade-green skin, wearing only tights and a massive cloak, the giant looked that way, then continued on his path. Ludicrously, he held a leash attached to a bug lizard iguana, which strained towards the light warriors before its master pulled it away.
Giants! Hall of Giants!
Drake whispered once it was gone.
Sheesh, I never thought they were real. They are.
Mary stood up, dusting herself off.
We have them up near Gaia. Now we know why these tunnels are so wide. Sorry about that, but I had to get you out of sight before he saw you. If it's to keep me from being stomped on, feel free to abuse me however you please.
Drake winked.
Or for any other reason, I don't mind.
Mary giggled, and Vlad scowled.
What's the last one?
He asked grumpily.
Oh, right. Hall of Earth.
Drake reported.
That one seems the most innocuous. Shall we give it a go? Might as well.
Luke headed down the hall, and the others followed. At first, it seemed uninhabited, but to their surprise, a pair of monstrous forms suddenly lunged out of the wall. They vaguely resembled humans, but they were made of swirling sand that ghosted across the hall towards them.
All intruders shall die. For the glory of Lord Lich.
One of them hissed.
Earth. As in earth elementals.
Vlad snarled.
Be careful.
The elementals were troublesome to put down, only repeated strokes to the head seemed to harm them at all physically, and Vlad's magic was required to finish them off, dissolving them back into sand. Mary healed them and they continued, further down into the depths of the earth. Unfortunately, the way was even more complex from then on, becoming a labyrinth with no more directing signs. The monsters continued to confront them, though, a swarm of assorted undead, new breeds of vile ooze, even some of the wizards of marsh, who had apparently found a new master. Most dangerous of all were a flock of deceptively harmless-looking blue birds. Seeing them, Luke and Drake relaxed, then jumped as Vlad cursed and unleashed a cloud of incredible coldness that froze the entire flock solid and dropped them to the ground.
Cockatrices,
Vlad explained grimly.
If you look into their eyes, you turn to stone. Don't.
Unfortunately, the last hall they journeyed through had several more flocks, alternated with the wizards of marsh, until they finally reached a pair of steel doors. Kicking them open, the light warriors glared at the vampire, who sat on a throne of black basalt, calmly sipping from a goblet of some red liquid.
So? You have come.
Lich grinned sharply at them and threw his cup aside.
How brave of you! You confront me, the fiend of earth, here in the seat of my power. I am impressed. Well done. I'm so pleased with your bravery, I'll give you one more chance to flee and live. What do you say? Thanks, but not today, scum.
Drake tested the edge of his sword.
Today's the day we settle things. End of the road for you. Then you will perish, here and now. That is the only destiny you shall fulfill. The destiny of all your kind.
Lich stood and flared his cape dramatically.
All living things were born to die in the end, and now, it's your time to see that with your own eyes.
Luke and Drake charged, blades flashing.
Sounds to me like you're offering yourself up as an example.
The thief grunted.
We'll take you up on that offer.
The vampire dodged his blade easily and caught Drake's, forcing it aside, then smashing the elf away with a simple slap that sent him flying. Luke continued to hack at him, but Lich dodged easily again and again.
Is this all you can do?
He struck at Luke's chest, forcing him back, but the fighter just smiled.
The word is diversion.
Lich's eyes widened an instant before the twin magical attacks of Mary and Vlad struck him. Blasts of holy and flaming magic met and mixed on the vampire's body, and he was sent flying with even more force than he had launched Drake, a screaming wreckage that thudded into the back of his room before sliding down.
Damn! You!
Lich croaked as Drake and Luke charged again. Raising his hands, he created the flash of blinding lights again, but the two of them simply closed their eyes and continued charging, then swept their blades into opposite sides of the Fiend of Earth's body. The silver and dragon swords met with a clash, severing Lich in half completely at the chest. The Fiend of Earth gaped at them once more, then dissolved, fading away into sand like the elementals had.
Well.
Drake stood up and sheathed his blade.
That was easy. Scratch one fiend, I guess. Yeah.
Luke agreed.
Weird, though. Astos was better than that. I'm not the brightest guy around, but something's up.
Vlad agreed.
Take out your orbs, everybody.
They all did, all 4 crystals were just as dull as ever.
Shouldn't there be some sort of reaction from this kind of thing? Maybe if we look around a bit more.
Mary suggested, walking over to Lich's remains.
Hey! Check this out!
Sitting in the pile was a ruby the size of her fist, blood red and faintly glowing.
Think the Titan would like this? I'll bet he would.
Drake grinned.
Pick it up, then. Now, if all else fails, we can go ask Sarda about this.
Further exploration revealed a passageway behind the throne. Short and simple, it ended in a 6-foot stone plate, heavily engraved with ancient runes and curious symbols.
What's this supposed to be?
Both Mary and Vlad shuddered, stepping back from it.
Magic? That makes even that spell Astos cast on the prince look like child's play.
Mary gasped.
That plate. It's the most powerful enchantment I've ever felt. It's intense. And under it,
Vlad growled.
Can you feel it? Something evil.
Luke realized.
Like the feeling we get from this place. Only more so. It's the same feel as from the black orb in the Temple of Fiends. This isn't good. I think it's time we got out of here.
Drake decided.
If we can't do anything with this plate right now, then we definitely need to ask Sarda about this. Messing around without knowing what's up is a bad idea. But I'll say this. I don't think our business here is over yet. Let's go consult with the sage, and find out what exactly is going on here.
Turning, the light warriors departed, trying to shake off the feeling that the stone plate was actually watching them from behind. Watching their backs with every step that they took upon the earth. But even after they left that room, the feeling persisted. End of chapter.